Again, the Huntington City Council meeting for Monday, December 14th, 2020. Tonight, the invocation will be led by Annabelle Dayhoff, and Mr. Klemper will lead us in the pledge. Would you please rise and uncover?
Our dear Heavenly Father, we come before you once again to do the business of our city that we all love. And God, just please help each of us to make the right decisions, to have new and creative ideas, especially getting through this awful pandemic. And God, while we mention the pandemic, I just ask you to stop it, to kill it out at its roots. Father, we don't want any more of that near our city, near our workers here. We just don't want anyone to get this awful disease. So please, God, may we just see a real fast decline in it. And God, we want to say thank you to all the council people who've worked these last 4 years, 6 years, 8, however many. And I want to say thanks to them because there's only one more meeting for many of them after tonight. So God, just give them a great blessing as they leave this place, and God help them to stay involved in our city. And Father, we pray for the new ones coming aboard in January, that they will all be able to work together and have peace together and make our city even better. Thank you in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Atkins, good evening. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bates?
Here.
Ms. Clark? Ms. Clark? Absent. Ms. Howe?
Here.
Mr. Klemper?
Here.
Mr. McComas?
Here.
Mr. McGuffin?
Here.
Ms. Page? Absent. Ms. Poland? Absent. Bishop Shaw?
Here.
Mr. Shockley?
Here.
Ms. Wheeler?
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. I just remind those members that are calling in, if you would please mute your phone until you're talking. That would be very much appreciated. Item 3 is the synopsis of the last meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the adoption. Second motion.
Okay. It's moved by Mr. Shockley and seconded by Bishop Shaw. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Atkins, call the roll, please.
Ms. Clark? Absent. Ms. Howe? Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Klemper?
Yes. Here.
Mr. McComas? Mr. McComas?
Yes.
Mr. McGuffin?
Yes.
Ms. Page? Absent. Ms. Poland? Absent. Bishop Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Shockley?
Yes.
Ms. Wheeler?
Yes.
And the synopsis is approved. Item 4 is the reports of the mayor. Mr. Mayor, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members. In the month of November, our trash and sanitation crews collected 1,447 tons of household garbage and 191 loose trash. They've also completed 347 special pickups. In the year 2021 coming up, Huntington is turning 150 years old, and one event will bring its own blend of Appalachian spirit to our area. we're excited to announce that the NPR International Live Radio Program, in conjunction with the City of Huntington and Martial Artists Series, Mountain Stage, will host a sesquicentennial themed concert on Friday, April 16th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Once again, Mountain Stage will host a sesquicentennial themed concert on Friday, April 16th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. The Rain or Shine event will take place at the Joan C. Edwards Stadium. At the Joan C. Edwards Stadium, and all local, state, and federal safety guidelines will be followed. General admission tickets will go on sale, and performers will be announced in early 2021, so stay tuned for more information. Members of the council, I'm pleased to introduce to you today Rashad Sanders, who has been named as the Executive Director of the Fairfield Community Development Corporation. In this role, Rashad will report to the FCDC 15-member board of directors, all of whom either live or work in Fairfield, and will serve as the nonprofit organization's point person for enhancing the physical, economic, health, safety, and social aspects of life for Fairfield residents. This organization was created as a result of the economic revitalization plan that the city submitted as part of the America's Best Communities competition. Rashad grew up in the Fairfield neighborhood, and he will tell you that the community raised him. He's also a 2007 graduate of Marshall University and worked at Marshall for many years before accepting the position with FCDC in November. He's here this evening to introduce himself to you and tell you a little bit about himself and discuss the community's goals in Fairfield. If you will help me welcome Rashad Sanders.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, for that wonderful introduction, and good evening to the City Council. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to come and speak before you this evening. I will not be long because I know it's Monday night and Monday Night Football is on, so I'll be as brief as possible. As he said, I'm a Huntington resident. I'm very excited taking this position. I was raised here. I'm a graduate of Huntington High School up in No. 1 Highlander Way. Went on to Marshall University, where I studied business management with a focus, business administration with a focus in management. Received my degree in 2007. After school, I worked at Prestera. There, I work with underprivileged youth from all over the city. We would do things with them to kind of help build their morale, help them build a better character for themselves, kids that were headed down the wrong road. Following that, I returned to Marshall, where I worked as a purchasing agent. While I was a purchasing agent there at Marshall University, it was a great time. Had the opportunity to meet a lot of different people from everywhere. I worked my way up to become a contract specialist there. As a contract specialist, I worked with renovations, upgrades, and construction at the university. I handled their whole bidding process and put those bids out. It was pretty tedious. It could be fun at times. Sometimes it could be very daunting. In 2019, I moved on to Special Metals, where I had a brief stint there, and now I'm here at the FCDC. I really appreciate the board for having the confidence in me to hire me to move forward with this. I'm very excited. I believe that the best thing that we could do for the Fairfield community is give them a platform for their voices to be heard. That's how you let a community know that you really care. And I'm very excited. I want to be the one to do that. I say it all the time. I believe that we are Fairfield strong, and Fairfield will be great. I'm very excited. I want to say also thank you to all of my supporters out there. They made a post on Facebook today, and it kind of went crazy from the city of Huntington. I wasn't prepared for the type of reaction that we got. I'm very grateful for the support of my wife and our 5 children. We are very grateful to the board for allowing me this opportunity to give back to a community that gave so much to me. While I was in college, I was in a fraternity called Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated. We're the first nationally black historic fraternity founded in the United States at Cornell University. While at school, I could come back to the community, participate in backpack giveaways at the 80 Lewis, community cleanups, kind of my way of introducing guys who may be from DC or somewhere in Kentucky or Florida, a chance to get over in the community and meet people and get a chance to talk with them. During my time growing up in the community, my grandmother was a pastor there for 35 years. I grew up on 17th Street and 10th Avenue. She lived a block away from the church. She would walk there every day. She would stop, talk to people, pray with people, encourage people to do better in life. After she passed away, I met so many people whose lives she had touched. People who were headed down the wrong road, people who were addicted to drugs, people who had lost their jobs, and she just kind of encouraged them. And they told me things like she would come to families' funerals and she would always sing. She was known for singing and just encouraging people. She would also do funerals for people who didn't go to her church. She would take people in from the community who couldn't find a church, and churches say, oh, we can't do that. They're not a member. And she would do their funerals. And I said all that to say this, that my grandmother left a great legacy, and I can walk those same streets. I might not be able to give the same powerful prayers that she gave and do the things that she had done, but I feel that this job will allow me the opportunity to continue her legacy and give back in a different way. We want to work on, things, better housing, economic growth. We want to work on health and wellness, education. We want to touch the people in the Fairfield community, and I believe that community can be great. I don't think it'll be great. I know it will be great, and I believe it will be Fairfield strong, and thank you for your time.
Okay. Item 5 is the first reading of an ordinance 2020-040. Ms. Atkins.
An ordinance of council amending, modifying, and reenacting Article 1739 of the codified ordinances of the City of Huntington as revised concerning the official building code of the City of Huntington.
It's the first reading, sponsored by Ms. Clark. Mr. Dameron. Good
Yes,
evening.
sir. This ordinance was prepared to change a state code reference to reflect the change in the West Virginia code from the 2020 session. It involved the authority of the fire marshal over demolition of unsafe buildings. It changed the reference at that time from West Virginia Code 29-3-12 to 15-10-2. So we needed to make that change in order to keep up with changes in the state code. The second provision provides for the ability of the city manager to extend the time period for the recording of liens for demolition of buildings. As you know, we have the ability to record a lien for the cost of demolition of an unsafe building, and it makes it more convenient to be able to collect liens and then record them at one time rather than to record them and have the right after the demolition has taken place and only have 90 days to do it. So it's very helpful for the Unsafe Building Commission to have this ordinance passed to allow them extra time to record their liens.
This did come from, a recommendation did come from the Administration and Finance Committee, positive recommendation. Any questions of council members present? No. Questions? Those members calling in, do you have any questions on the item? Hearing none, we'll move on to a second reading of that ordinance. Item 6 is the first reading of an ordinance 2020-041. Ms. Atkins.
An ordinance of council amending, modifying, and reenacting Part 13, Articles 1315, 1317, 1320, 1333, and 1334 of the codified ordinances of the City of Huntington as revised concerning planning and zoning code.
It is the first reading of an ordinance sponsored by Mr. Shockley. Mr. Straight is here to speak to us about it. Mr. Straight, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of council. This ordinance here is primarily related to the updates to bring the two new industrial districts into alignment with the format of the rest of the zoning ordinance. as well as some other minor updates to the related sections. We do some minor updates to some definitions. We do some clear categorization of the different districts within our city, such as residential, commercial, and industrial, as referenced throughout the ordinance. We do some updates to the permitted use chart, primarily cutting the permitted and conditionally permitted uses from the industrial districts article and moving them into this chart, the same as the rest of the other districts in the city. And then the formatting and other minor edits to those industrial districts. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Are there any questions of Mr. Straight from members present? Any questions? Those members calling in, do you have any questions for Mr. Straight? Hearing none, Ms. Wheeler, do you have a committee report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was heard by both the Planning Commission as well as the Planning and Zoning Committee of City Council, forwarded with a favorable recommendation. Additionally, I'd just like to add that there has been an announcement that Mr. Straight will be leaving for some exciting new pastures, and I want to say congratulations and wish him well.
Very well. We will move that item on to a second reading. Item 7 is the first reading of an ordinance 2020-042. Ms. Atkins.
An ordinance of council amending, modifying, and reenacting Part 13, Articles 1321, 1323, and 1325 of the codified ordinances of the City of Huntington as revised concerning planning and zoning.
It's
code.
the first reading sponsored by Bishop Shaw. Mr. Straight, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of council. This ordinance here is modifying our 4 residential districts to place in the standards on-site parking as related to residential uses for the districts, whereas before these standards were kind of distributed throughout general regulations, supplemental regulations based on types of uses, and office policy. They're now codified into their districts themselves to make it much clearer and consistent for our stakeholders. This is also in alignment with the comprehensive plan, check marking another item off our list. So if there are any questions about the ordinance, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions for Mr. Straight on the item of members present? None? Those members calling in, any questions on the item?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Mr. McGuffin,
Yes.
go ahead.
I'd like to know exactly addresses.
I'm sorry, addresses?
Yes.
I'm not following you, sir.
Streets.
Mr. Straight.
Physical addresses.
Oh, yes, Mr. McGuffin. So these changes here impact all 4 of our districts, and the changes are specific to each district. So these aren't for specific addresses for residential uses, but rather whether your use would be located in our R1, R2, R4, or R5 district. And so we've crafted specific standards for each of those. So this will be general across the residential districts of the city.
Does that answer your
Hey,
question?
thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Straight? Ms. Wheeler, I'm coming to you for a committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this was heard by both the Planning Commission as well as the Planning and Zoning Committee of City Council and forwarded with a favorable recommendation with gratitude to Mr. Straight and the planning staff for all their work on this item. Thank you.
Sounds great. We will move that on to a second reading. And Mr. Straight, on behalf of the City Council, good luck in your new ventures. Item 8 is the first reading of an ordinance 2020-043. Ms. Atkins.
An ordinance of council of the city of Huntington creating and enacting a new article as Article 188, establishing the Huntington Building Commission.
It is the first reading of the ordinance sponsored by Mr. Shockley. Mr. Mayor, good evening.
Mr. Chairman, somebody needs to mute their phone.
Those members listening in, someone needs to mute their phone if you don't mind, please.
Worked. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is ordinance is intended to create a building commission for the city of Huntington. State law permits municipalities and counties to create a separate entity called a building commission that has the responsibility for giving the city one additional opportunity to utilize how to acquire property or to be able to finance different projects. As you all know, the city has the Huntington Urban Renewal Authority that has done principally work in the downtown area over the last 40 years. The Huntington Municipal Development Authority has developed the Huntington Industrial Center, Kinetic Park, and is presently working for the redevelopment of the Huntington, or the High Lawn Brownfields. HMDA has been around since the mid-1980s. Each of these have given us the capability to do an awful lot of things, but their plates are full. And it's come to my attention that Huntington is the only city, large city in West Virginia that does not have the use of a building commission. In essence, all it is doing is giving us one additional arrow to add in our quiver to be able to address development issues that are coming up, or development opportunities that are coming up within the city. It's no assurance that we will put it immediately to effect, but it's something that gives us the opportunity to utilize it if it makes sense. We have with us our counsel, John Stump, to be able to answer any specific questions about the statutory makeup. We'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Members present, any questions for the mayor on the item? Questions? No questions? Those members calling in, any questions on the item? Okay, hearing none, we will move that on to a second reading. Item 9 is the first reading of an ordinance 2020-044. Ms. Atkins.
An ordinance of council approving the transfer of 2 previously reserved utility easements from the city of Huntington to the Huntington Municipal Development Authority.
Is the first reading sponsored by Mr. Klemper. Mr. Dameron, good evening.
Yes, sir. Good evening again. The ordinance that's before you approves the transfer of 2 utility easements to the owner of the property currently, which is the old Plasma building. It's on the alley behind 5th Avenue. A developer has purchased the old Burger King property, torn it down, and wishes to also purchase that property for a development that they are planning. Back when that property was developed, 6th Avenue, which is behind 20th Street, that portion was abandoned, and the city at the time reserved 2 utility easements, which are now actually under the footprint of the Plasma building. We are asking council to convey those 2 utility easements to the property owner so that the developer can go forward in the development that he intends. We checked with the Sanitary Board and Public Works, and we found that there are no utilities currently underneath those 2 easements, so they are clear to be transferred, and wouldn't involve any money to the city or either to or from.
Questions for Mr. Dameron, those members present? No questions? And those members calling in, any questions for Mr. Dameron? Hearing none, we'll move it on to a second reading. This did come before the Administration and Finance Committee and did come forward with a favorable recommendation. Item 10 is Resolution 2020 R78. Ms. Atkins.
A resolution of council authorizing the mayor to apply for and accept the conditions of a 2020-2021 Land and Water Conservation Fund, LWCF, grant for the 14th Street West Gazebo Park Improvements Project.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the adoption.
Okay, it's moved by Mr. Shockley and seconded by Bishop Shaw. Ms. Burns is here to speak to us about the project. Ms. Burns?
Good evening, Chairman, members of council. The City of Huntington, along with the Renew All nonprofit, will be applying for a land and water conservation grant due the end of this month. The estimated cost is $240,000, 50% match required, of which Renew All has raised the largest percentage of that. The city to this date has committed up to $25,000, and the grant money will be used to make renovations and improvements to the gazebo area along 14th Street West.
Questions for Ms. Burns on the item? Those members present? Those members calling in, any questions for Ms. Burns on the item? Okay, thank you, Ms. Burns. Hearing none, I will say that the Administration and Finance Committee did meet on this item and sent forth to full council with a favorable recommendation. Ms. Atkins, was there any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Wheeler?
Yes.
Ms. Clark? Absent. Ms. Howe? Yes. Mr. Klemper?
Yes.
Mr. McComas?
Yes.
Mr. McGuffin?
Yes.
Ms. Page? Absent. Ms. Poland? Absent. Ms. Bishop Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Shockley?
Yes.
Mr. Bates?
Yes, and the resolution is approved. Just to remind someone that's calling in, your phone needs to mute again. I'm sorry to have to smack your hand there. Item 11 is a resolution 2020 R80. Ms. Atkins.
A resolution of council authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract to furnish the Huntington Fire Department with turnout gear.
Substitute sponsor, Mr. Shockley, you move.
I'll move for the adoption, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
And Bishop seconds. Chief Rader, good evening.
How are you, sir?
I'm fantastic.
Mr. Chair and Council, before you is a resolution to provide the City of Huntington Fire Department with 73 sets of turnout gear. Earlier this year, Council approved the first 27 sets that have already been ordered. When the purchasing department received 3 proposals for turnout gear in May of this year, the successful vendor was Red Hot Fire Equipment, and they agreed to keep the bid price through the end of December for the remainder sets of gear. This purchase will be the first time that all Huntington firefighters are outfitted with a second set of turnout gear, which will provide greater safety, especially when it comes to carcinogen exposure. With 2 sets of gear, once a firefighter fights a fire, he will be able to switch to a clean set of gear for the remainder of his shift while his dirty set is starting the laundering process, and we have gear washers in several stations. The funds are available for this purchase in line item 3450-101, uniform safety gear, in the amount of $125,845.43.
Okay. Questions for the chief? Members present? Any questions? No question. Those members calling in, any questions for the chief? Hearing none, this did go before the Finance and Administration Committee and did come to full council with a favorable recommendation. Ms. Atkins, was there any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Clark? Absent. Ms. Howe? Ms. Howe? Mr. Klemper?
Yes.
Mr. McComas?
Yes.
Mr. McGuffin?
Yes.
Ms. Page? Absent. Ms. Poland? Absent. Bishop Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Shockley?
Yes.
Ms. Wheeler?
Yes.
And Mr. Bates?
Yes, and the resolution is approved. Item 12 is a resolution. It's 2020 R83. Ms. Atkins.
A resolution of council authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract to furnish the Huntington Police Department with firearms accessories.
Move for adoption.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Mr. Klemper and seconded by Mr. Shockley. Chief Cornwell's here to speak to us on the item. Chief, good evening.
Good evening. Resolution 2020-R-83 is a resolution to furnish the Huntington Police Department with firearms accessories. This again is related to our coming transition from 45 caliber pistols to 9mm pistols. This purchase was bid. We received 3 proposals from Galls, from Pittsburgh Police Supply, and from Markle's Supply. The winning bidder was Markle's Supply in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and they were also the low bidder, incidentally, on our new pistols. With this purchase, we will be buying 120 open-top triple magazine holders, 20 open-top double magazine holders, 120 weapon-mounted flashlights, 30 single mag holders, 30 combination mag and handcuff holders, 120 duty pistol holsters, and 30 administrative carry holsters. The total cost on this purchase is $30,252.50, and we will pay for this with asset forfeiture funds.
Okay, great. Questions for the chief on the item, members present? Any questions? Those members calling in, any questions for the chief on this item? Hearing none. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
The Administration and Finance Committee did meet on this item and sends it to full council with a favorable recommendation. Was there any public comment on this item, Ms. Atkins?
No public comment.
No public comment. Thank you. Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Howe? Mr. Klemper?
Yes.
Mr. McComas?
Yes.
Mr. McGuffin? Mr. McGuffin?
Yes.
Ms. Page, absent. Ms. Poland, absent. Bishop Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Shockley?
Yes.
Ms. Wheeler?
Yes.
Ms. Clark, absent. Mr. Bates?
Yes, and the resolution is approved. Item 13 is a resolution 2020 R86. Ms. Atkins, please.
A resolution of council and the mayor supporting Cabell Huntington Health Department's severance of service level agreement with the West Virginia Division of Personnel.
Move for the-
I'll second.
It's been moved by Mr. Klemper and seconded by Mr. Shockley. Mr. Dameron, good evening.
Yes, sir. Good evening again. I'm here to introduce this resolution. It's proposed by the Cabell Huntington Health Department, and it would support the severance of a personnel agreement with the West Virginia Division of Personnel. And we have the pleasure of having Dr. Kilkenny and Dr. Yingling here to explain the particulars of the resolution.
Okay. Dr. Kilkenny? Third time around, it's the charm tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You can pull that up a little bit if you need to there. There you go.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and council members. For many years, the Cabell Huntington Health Department has operated human resources with a service level agreement with the Division of Personnel, which is a state agency. At this time, and through improvements in our own internal policies, we believe that we are capable of managing those personnel matters and human resources policies and procedures. Without that, that we believe that that service level agreement now adds no value to our agency and in fact forms a hindrance in our ability to recruit and retain a competent public health workforce. The Board of Health has passed a resolution to sever that agreement, but state law requires the approval of the board's action by the board's appointing authorities before the health department can submit that. So we have asked the Cabell County Commission, and we are today asking the City of Huntington to approve the board's action to sever that service level agreement.
Okay. Any questions for Dr. Kilkenny from members present? No questions. Those members calling in, any questions for Dr. Kilkenny? I know we're on delay, so that's why I wait just a couple of minutes. Thank you, Doctor. This did come before the Administration and Finance Committee earlier this evening, and it does come with a favorable recommendation to full council. Ms. Atkins, this item was advertised. Was there any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
Okay. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Klemper?
Yes.
Mr. McComas?
Yes.
Mr. McGuffin?
Yes.
Ms. Page?
Yes.
Absent. Ms. Poland? Absent. Bishop Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Shockley?
Yes.
Ms. Wheeler?
Yes.
Ms. Clark? Absent. Ms. Howe? Absent.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Bates?
Yes, and the resolution is approved. Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Yingling, thank you. Okay, item 14 is a resolution 2020 R87. Ms. Atkins.
A resolution for budget revision number 4 of the fiscal year 2020-2021 general fund budget.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the adoption.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Shockley and seconded by Mr. Klemper. Mr. Mayor, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council. This budget revision simply transfers $344,658 out of contingency into 3 specific accounts, one within the finance office to create the position of a compliance officer. This will be a full-time position. It will also fund a position in the mayor's office for a constituent and council services position. And lastly, it will add $250,000 to our economic development line. As I indicated to you in the work session, this specific line item is something that I have alluded to for several months now. Council and I have partnered together to position the city so that we would be able to end up on the other side of the COVID-19 pandemic in a much stronger position. As I have been fond to say, that we are experiencing a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, but it also gives us a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. With that, much of what we have partnered on is identifying ways that we might be able to reduce taxes for our businesses in the downtown, well, our retail and restaurant businesses, mostly in the downtown area, where we have also been able to target housing, construction, and be able to reduce the business and occupation taxes for construction, new housing construction and rehabilitation that is less than $200,000. We've also been able to give support to our businesses through PPP, PPE, and we've also been able to assist our residents of the community by reducing the refuse fee or eliminating the refuse fee for the last 6 months. Simply put, where we are right now, actually is for the last 9 months, counting this month. Where we are right now is at the position that we have been hoping. We need to make sure that we're positioning the city of Huntington so that there is something to come to and to attract individuals to live in our neighborhoods, to invest in our community and be able to create businesses, bring businesses and create jobs. With that, what we also need to do is know who to target to be able to make that investment, to move to our community. One thing that has become quite clear is the more populated areas throughout the nation, individuals living there are actively looking to move to areas where they can have an easier time for social distancing, but also have the capability of being able to continue their work no matter where they live. Simply what they've learned is through working remotely, it doesn't matter where they are, just so that they would be able to continue doing business. That's why we've also been working on developing high-speed broadband throughout the area. That being said, there's a group of individuals who've created a company called Streamscape that came to me, and each of these individuals are familiar to all of you on council and most, if not all, of the community. The individuals are Chris Miller, Matt White, Wes Thompson, and Dan Greider. Streamscape is creating the opportunity to identify a COVID-19 digital media action plan. In essence, by utilizing digital media, utilizing their proprietary process to reach out and analyze in metro areas individuals who would reveal themselves through various efforts within different means within the digital landscape to identify who to target to try to attract into Huntington and to West Virginia. This is a great opportunity for us. This is one thing that sets us apart, sets Huntington apart from every city in West Virginia, and dare I say, every city in the nation, because I've been meeting regularly with other mayors across the country, and we've been talking about how do we take full advantage of this opportunity to be able to attract people to our areas. And I've been listening to what the other cities are saying, and I've kept my mouth shut. I didn't want to tip our hand, but nobody's doing this. These gentlemen have come up with a means, and they came because of their love to their city. They came to say, can we partner with you? And I was quite enthusiastic, shall we say. We're bringing this to your attention as a budget revision in the economic development line. We will be bringing to the new City Council an agreement authorizing the partnership with Streamscape. But we have Chris Miller on the line, and I'm sure he could bring edification as to what we're doing in a much clearer fashion than I'm able to.
Mr. Miller, good evening.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? Well, it's great. It's neat to be a part of this. This is a very, very forward-thinking project, and it takes a very forward-thinking mayor to really grasp it, and very, very forward-thinking council to understand it. But long story short, we are moving into a time of data where the collection and the analysis of data can tell us everything. And we know that once COVID hit, the interest started building up where people were curious about places the virus did and didn't spread. And as cost of living becomes a part, and we have an entire generation of people that are going to be able to work from home and make a good living, they are looking right now. And they are looking at places where they can relocate their family to accommodate what their new definition of a good, healthy life is. And we also know that Huntington can play a huge part in all of that. And so the approach is actually identifying the people out there in the marketplace that are actively looking, and then knowing how to deliver them the right message that's important to them to walk them down a decision-making funnel to consider the city as a place to relocate. And it's a very proprietary type approach that is going to be really neat to watch develop, because it evolves and we can become very, very granular with it and dial very, very finitely into details to help get all the information that we need to make sure that it is successful. And a lot of that comes with how we deliver the message to the individuals. But at the end of the day, I think Mayor Williams has done a really great job of explaining what this is. And I hope I've been able to add some important details for you guys to help with your decision. But this is some really, really neat forward-thinking stuff that we can use to help make Huntington a better community, because we have something that a lot of people out there want now. And it's very, very important to be able to provide them with that right information at that right time to help them consider this decision. And there's nobody else out there right now that is doing this type of approach.
Mr. Chairman.
Anything else you'd like me to add, Mayor?
No, I think you've hit upon it. I do want to emphasize, look at the principles of the company. Observe what they have done in their own individual enterprises. They have set themselves apart from anyone else with whom they are against whom they are competing. Please understand, a successful entrepreneur sees opportunities when everyone else sees an empty field. That's what they're bringing to us. And the empty field that they are seeing are all of the metropolitan areas of the nation, and it gives us an opportunity to take full advantage of what they have been learning in their own enterprises. And we're thankful to them for seeing the business opportunity becoming to us and saying, we want to do this to make our city better. And I'm awfully grateful that they took the time earlier in the summer to come to me and suggest that this is a way that we might be able to set ourselves apart.
Any questions on the item?
I
Mr.
just
Shockley?
got one comment for Chris. Chris, thank you very much for staying on the phone. Being committed for 3 hours by telephone is commendable. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Bishop, any questions? Okay, those members calling in, any questions on the item? Hearing none. This item was advertised. Ms. Adkins, was there any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
No public comment. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. McComas?
Yes.
Mr. McGuffin?
Yes.
Ms. Page, absent. Ms. Poland, absent. Bishop Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Shockley?
Yes.
Ms. Wheeler?
Yes.
Ms. Clark, absent. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Klemper?
Yes.
And Mr. Bates?
Yes, and the resolution is approved. Item 15 is Resolution 2020 R88. Ms. Atkins.
A resolution of council authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract to furnish the Huntington Fire Department with various COVID-19 equipment.
Mr. Klemper.
For the adoption.
I'll second.
I'll give it to Bishop. Mr. Klimper moves, and Mr. Bishop Shaw seconds, and we have Chief Rader back with us. Chief,
How are you, sir?
I'm great.
Mr. Chair, members of council, before you is a resolution to provide the City of Huntington Fire Department with various COVID equipment, which includes SCBA mask, adapters, cartridges, face pieces, and cylinders. The sole source provider is Johnson's Fire Equipment. Funds for this purchase have been secured through Community Development Block Grant funding that were approved by this body earlier this year. The purchase has also been approved by HUD for COVID, as COVID related. The total cost of this purchase is $237,053.10. No matching funds necessary.
Okay. Any questions or comments from members present? Nothing? Those members calling in, any questions or comments on the item? Nothing? Ms. Atkins, was there any public comment on this item?
No public comment, sir.
Okay. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. McGuffin.
Yes.
Ms. Page, absent. Ms. Poland, absent. Bishop Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Shockley.
Yes.
Ms. Wheeler.
Yes.
Ms. Clark, absent. Ms. Howe.
Yes.
Mr. Klimper.
Yes.
Mr. McComas.
Yes.
And Mr. Bates.
Yes, and the resolution is approved. Item 16 is good and welfare. Ms. Atkins, was there any public comment for good and welfare that was received today?
No public comment, sir.
Okay. Go to my friends calling in. Ms. Howell, do you have anything for good and welfare? Okay. Mr. McComas, anything for good and welfare?
No, all okay.
Good deal. Mr. McGuffin? Okay.
No comment.
All right. Ms. Wheeler?
No comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Members present? Anything? Nothing.
I just have one quick thing so everybody can get out of here. Be remiss not to say congratulations, Doc Holliday, Mike Hamrick, and the staff of Marshall University for hosting the championship game here. Marshall's success is also a win for Huntington. When you have another team coming in, you have a lot of fans coming in, patronizing hotels, restaurants, retail. So Marshall's success is Huntington's success. So congratulations to those guys and good luck in the championship game.
Absolutely. And I will just say to each of you and each of you that are listening, we won't be back here until after Christmas, but I wish you a very merry and joyful Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.